In 1992, Disney arrived in France with a simple assumption. If America's Magic Kingdom worked in California, Florida, and Tokyo, it would work in Paris too. So they built a glittering empire outside the French capital, poured billions into the project, and expected Europe to line up at the gates. But instead of applause, they got protests. Instead of romance, resentment, and instead of a triumph, Disney walked straight into one of the most expensive corporate miscalculations of the modern era. At the time, Disney had every reason to feel invincible. Tokyo Disneyland had been a sensation. The formula looked unstoppable. Build the park, wrap it in hotels, restaurants, retail, real estate, and let the brand do the rest. To Disney's leadership, Europe looked like the next obvious conquest. Disney reportedly considered Spain. It had the weather, it had the sun, it had the vacation energy. But France won. Paris sat closer to major population centers, had stronger transport links, and offered access to tens of millions of potential visitors within a few hours. On paper, it looked rational. In practice, it would become a case study in confusing demographics with understanding. Because even before the first ticket was sold, the backlash had already started. French intellectuals and critics did not see Euro Disney as harmless entertainment. Many reportedly saw it as an American corporate import, dressed up as fantasy. One critic famously called it a cultural Chernobyl, a phrase so dramatic, so hostile. It captured the entire mood in 2 words. Disney thought it was exporting joy. Its critics thought it was importing a worldview. Then came the operational mistakes, the kind that, on their own, sound small, but together they became fatal. The most famous was the alcohol ban. Disney initially prohibited alcohol inside the park, applying a distinctly American family park rule to a country where wine with lunch was not indulgent. It was ordinary. To Disney, it may have seemed consistent with the brand. To many French visitors, it reportedly felt bizarre, preachy, and culturally illiterate. Then there was breakfast, a humiliating problem, precisely because it should have been easy. Disney planners reportedly assumed European guests would want a light breakfast, coffee, maybe a croissant, not much more. But many visitors wanted full breakfasts, and the resort simply wasn't ready. The result was chaos, shortages, angry lines, overwhelmed staff, and frustrated families before the day had even started. It is hard to sell magic when your guests begin the morning in a queue, hungry and irritated. And then came the labor clash. Disney brought its famous Disney look to France, strict standards on grooming, facial hair, makeup, and appearance. In the United States, that may have been seen as brand discipline. In France, it reportedly collided with local labor culture, personal expression, and legal expectations. What Disney treated as operational detail quickly became political. Even before opening, disputes over employee appearance helped turn the resort into a symbol of American corporate arrogance. And then came the numbers. Disney had opened with enormous expectations, roughly 11 million visitors in the first year. But early attendance reportedly came in well below what management had hoped for on peak days, and guest spending was softer than expected. The crowds were not behaving the way the spreadsheets said they would. Worse, the timing could hardly have been more brutal. Europe was entering recession. Consumers were under pressure, travel spending weakened, and Euro Disney, built on debt and optimism, suddenly found itself trying to meet fantasy-level projections in a very real economic downturn. Then, the optics turned disastrous. In 1992, French farmers blockaded access to the park with tractors while protesting American-backed agricultural policies. It was terrible PR, not because Disney caused those policies, but because Euro Disney had become a giant, visible symbol of American power sitting in French soil. The image was unforgettable, a palace of manufactured fantasy surrounded by the raw politics of the real world. Financially, the business began to hemorrhage. Losses piled up. Debt loomed over the entire project. According to financial reports from the period, Euro Disney sank so deep into crisis that emergency restructuring became essential to survival. This was no longer a difficult launch. This was a corporate thriller. A billion-dollar symbol of confidence was now flirting with collapse. So Disney did what giant corporations usually do, only when they have no other choice. It swallowed its pride. The company loosened policies. It adapted food service. It reversed the alcohol stance. And most importantly, it started learning a lesson it should have learned before opening. France was not a blank canvas for an American formula. Then came the rebrand. Euro Disney sounded cold, sterile, more like a banking institution than a dream destination. Disneyland Paris was different. It borrowed the emotional power of Paris itself. Romance, charm, mythology, prestige. The change was subtle, but smart. Disney stopped marketing a corporate European product and started selling a destination. The recovery was not instant. It took years. But the resort stabilized, attendance improved, and the park gradually found its footing. Not because Disney forced Europe to accept the model, but because Disney was finally forced to adapt the model to Europe. Euro Disney failed for a reason. That still destroys companies today. Not fraud, not sabotage, not bad luck alone, but corporate hubris. The belief that success in one market automatically translates to another. Disney reportedly assumed its brand was strong enough to outrun culture. It wasn't, because global expansion is never just about money, land, or logistics. It is about habits, identity, taste, language, pride. The details executives dismiss as minor are often the very things customers use to decide whether a brand belongs. And that is the irony. Disneyland Paris eventually became Europe's most visited tourist attraction, but only after Disney learned the lesson the hard way. If you want to enter a culture, you cannot just market to it. You have to respect it. Some companies export products, others export assumptions. Subscribe for the stories where billion-dollar ambition meets the one thing money can't automate: human nature.